Great careers are not accidents, they're journeys built through clarity and intent. In every industry, there are such journeys that reveal true leadership, sacrifice, risk, and purpose. I'm Dirk, and this is The Pitch and the Catch, where we dive into choices, changes, and the careers they create. Welcome. Today we're joined by someone whose work shapes far more of everyday life than most people realize. Jim VanderGiessen is the longtime CEO of Pro Refrigeration, where he spent 35 years shaping the firm. What began as a promising idea he shared with his father became a business that now supports some of the most essential industries in the nation. If you drink milk, enjoy a craft beer, or eat a frozen pizza, chances are Pro Refrigeration played some role in getting it to your table. Jim's path is one of taking something incomplete and giving it form. It is a story of keeping a family business relevant across decades of change and of staying curious enough to revisit old assumptions and follow new ideas into unexpected places. We'll talk about this. Along the way, he has led the company into innovations that have redefined its place in the markets it serves. Jim is deliberate, thoughtful, and quietly influential, and the impact of his work is hiding in plain sight. Jim, welcome to The Pitch and the Catch. It is great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Absolutely. It's absolutely my pleasure. Jim, let's get right into it. My first question. Most people, and I always love to explore what we actually do in our jobs, because quite often it's hard to explain to people what we do. We're so into it and often we're so specialized. In your case, most people never think about the cooling systems behind the foods they love. Can you start by giving us a picture of the world Pro Refrigeration operates in and the role your equipment plays in getting everyday products to the table?
Absolutely. Yeah, and it is a unique role, and I'm very lucky. I'm reminded of that often to be in the role that I have. But what my focus is working with business owners, whether they own a large dairy farm, craft brewery, winery. All of them have the problem of needing to provide the cooling and need a cooling solution, and that's really been our world, and it's been primarily focused on the dairy. That's where we got started, and then as the craft beverage market came about, we evolved our product to be the solution for that. And as your intro said, we've been just trying to maintain and keep that solution in place for these markets and keep being relevant. And it hasn't always been easy, but it's been fun and it's been challenging. And yeah, that's what we do.
Yes. So in the brief that you and I had, I shared the stories. I grew up partially on a dairy farm in New Brunswick, my uncle and my aunt's farm, and they had 54 cows, and
Mhm.
and you were like, that's not a small, that is not in your space.
Not
When you
currently.
say because you said dairy farms, large dairy farms, what's a large dairy farm?
The largest farms that we support are 25,000 to even 50,000 animals will be on these facilities, and they're just amazing facilities. But we have solutions all the way down to 600 cows, which is in the United States, that's below average for the average size farm in the US. And that's been our focus, is to cover it. We never realized when we came out with our instant cooling solution, or when and my dad first started developing it, we never thought it could scale, or at least we would be the ones behind driving it to scale to the farms getting as large as they are. And that's, but it's been fun to stay ahead of it. And we do have the best solution, on multiple levels, to support these farmers. That I think it's because of the 30 years, where but it's
Yes.
only been our focus. Yeah.
Because of my history, I'm very familiar with the logistics of milking 60 cows in the morning and in the afternoon. I know exactly because I've done that quite often. Now, milking 600 cows, and that's even below average. I can't even imagine how this looks like.
Yeah,
Or 20.
yeah, the milking parlors, of course, get larger. You were
Yes,
milking
yes.
a handful at a time. Now, on the largest farms, they'll have carousel that never stops. So they're constantly rotating carousel parlors with 100. I think they're up to about 140 animals at a time will be on a carousel, continuously milking. And some of these facilities will have multiple carousels, so they're just constantly yeah, there's the constant flow of cows and
It's
milk
constant.
being, yeah,
So for those farms, then you do have, let's say 600 cows, doesn't matter. And then the raw milk, I guess, goes into some storage solution, which where we will find your product.
correct. Yep,
And what part? So how does the whole, the whole
good
process chain
question.
works? How
What the milk is on that carousel parlor, or it can just be a stanchion parlor for the smaller cows. Yeah, the milk is using a vacuum system, is removed from the cows, goes to a receiver tank where it's stored momentarily. It's just kind of a balancing tank, and from there the warm milk is pumped through a plate and frame heat exchanger. And it's in that heat exchanger where our product, we provide the heat exchanger, and we also provide the coolant water that is fed to it, and that comes from our chiller system that's mounted outside. That milk goes through the heat exchanger. It's cooled down in two stages. The first stage using well water to take the initial heat out of the milk. The second stage, we use the chilled water, and we take the final cooling. We get that milk. So within minutes of it leaving the cow, you know, sometimes even less. We've taken it from 100 degrees Fahrenheit down to 33, 34 degrees Fahrenheit, where it's then transferred to an insulated tank. A lot of the tanks no longer have cooling on them, they're just for storage.
yes.
Or it's transferred directly onto an awaiting tanker truck. And you'll see where they'll have multiple tankers, 4,000 to 8,000 or 4,000 gallon, I think is the size of a traditional tanker truck, that they're constantly filling up, taking them to the creamery for processing.
And it's just I'm sorry, I'm revisiting my past with you a little bit. It's quite exciting. I remember in our case, the tanker truck came like every 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it wasn't that, instant. So and for those because I think this is before we dive into the product, the market, the leadership aspects, running a business, it's my curiosity about product. So as consumers, we don't drink raw milk. So everything we get is homogenized, pasteurized. So basically, you're cooling it down on site to 32, 33 degrees so it can be transported.
That's it. And also to prevent bacteria from
Yes.
giving the bacteria from the chance to even become an issue. If you can cool milk below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, you've eliminated 99% of all the negative impact that bacteria, and you just it's a huge hurdle and a huge important step. So that's what we do, and we get it to 32 because it, as you pointed out, it can take a couple days. Not often in this day and age, it's within 24 hours. That milk will be at the processor, and within a week it'll be on the store shelves for a lot of the fast processed or quickly processed dairy products.
See, I didn't know if you had an answer, but I was about to ask how old is my milk that I buy on the shelf if it's just been put there? So about a week is the fastest. Yeah.
I think so. Yeah, yeah, that was the last. But
Uh,
you never know. They have the ultra pasteurized milk that has a year-long shelf life, and it's crazy.
that is crazy. And now, so we've talked about milk, but you also meant the craft beverage market. How did you get into this, and what's your contribution there?
We were building the dairy systems, and we were only about 5 years into it. So this is right when craft brewing just came in, and there was a company out of the neighboring state in Oregon who came, or was they were building vessels, brew house equipment, and really at the ground floor of building these craft breweries. And they had saw that we built cooling systems for dairy farms, or someone had given them our name. And I remember them coming up and talking, meeting with my dad and I, and they said, "Well, do you know if these units will work for craft breweries?" And my dad had already done a couple. We'd worked with a couple of pioneer breweries in in Seattle at the time. Red Hook was just getting out. We hadn't done a chiller system, but we'd built part of their cooling system, the glycol handling system. So we were familiar with it. And Dad said, "No," he goes, I think we've got a solution for craft, that I think it'll work good." We weren't as close as, it took a little more work than that. But and the other thing that was neat, like on the dairy side, we didn't have something that we were modeling after. It was in Europe, they use ice builders. They used a lot of technology that here it just wasn't feasible. So we just kind of took the route we did, which was take an air conditioning rated chiller system, build it, develop it, modify it until we came up with a system that was, a nice light industrial, heavy commercial process chiller system that provided the performance that they needed. And we had to make them bulletproof because these markets, they were figuring stuff out, the craft beverage especially. And getting back to specifically how we serve the craft beverage market is today when you walk behind a brewery, and back then, you have a standard cooling system, and it has a glycol reservoir on it. And we chill that reservoir down to around 25 degrees Fahrenheit. We have a food grade, food safe antifreeze that we mix with the water so that they can chill it down that far. And then the brewery circulates that glycol through a header that goes around their entire facility. And when you go to a brewery, what do you see? You see stainless steel tanks everywhere. And there's the
Yes.
beer storage tanks, fermentation tanks, bright beer tanks, all sorts of tanks. Each of those tanks has cooling jackets and they're individually temperature controlled. But they're all fed off that one big cooling loop, and that loop is provided by our chiller system that sits out back. And we take all the heat from the beer, we return it in a header back to our chiller. We transfer that heat out of the glycol and then send it back to the brewery to go back to work.
So a brewery basically is operated like my car. So I have a cooling system in my car, and this is being routed through various parts of the engine to make
Yep.
sure it
Yep.
stays cool.
Absolutely. That's exactly it. From work cooling and we can touch. Initially, we were just cooling those stainless jackets, and it was a pretty on off control. But then and it was, well, what about our cold storage where we store the kegs and we age our products? Can
Yes.
we do temperature control there? And it was yes. And then how about the work cooling? And then now with the new technologies and the new refrigerants and heat recovery, we're not only providing that cooling solution to these facilities, but also, we're becoming the primary hot water heating source for them also. So it's really neat how it continues to evolve, even 30 years later, the role
So
and the
I mean, you do live in Washington State, so cooling of residential buildings is not the biggest issue. But I can only imagine if you were in Florida, how your own house would look like if you had to cool it down 10 months a year. It's probably a place for innovation.
you can go. Our factory is in North Carolina, and my
Here
team,
we go.
you would think they will tell you that I don't know. We do a lot of crazy testing. I've got some warehouse cooling coils that we run. We do a lot of different strategies, but yeah, it's I don't know if we've ever adequately provided the temperature control that the factory needs, just because we're generating so much heat. Also, we do so much equipment testing, but it's
Yes,
yeah, it's you need to come back to North Carolina. You would appreciate what we got set up back there.
absolutely. Wonderful. Jim, just because you mentioned it, and it's some part of your past, but the past is that in a way determines who we are. So you mentioned your father. So you began with an idea what is still taking shape. When you look back, what were the early decisions you made that made the biggest difference?
The partnerships, the
Ah,
industry partnerships, and we had two critical ones, both in the craft beverage and in the dairy side. And yeah, we never could have gotten the distance that we have without those. One was the instant milk cooling concept. It would give my dad all the credit for really advancing that. Not that people weren't installing the heat exchangers and cooling the milk, but nobody was taking full control of it, and nobody was effectively doing it at any size scale that dairy needed. And that's really what dad accomplished. And he forced our competitors, and what they were doing is they were doing partial, but they also sold the refrigerated milk tank, so they
yes.
wanted to rely on that, the reliance on it. So we didn't have the milk tank business to support. So we were we could really be a differentiator. Yeah, I don't know if I lost
Partnerships.
the partnerships. Yes, and our partnership was we were had a contact with a group. It was their name of them was Babson Brothers. They were one of the leading dairy equipment companies here in the United States. They built milking parlors. They built vacuum pumps and manure handling. They were a Ford or a Chevy within the dairy industry, and they understood it. They got it. They saw what we had, which we had two things. We have the cooling system, plus we have that heat exchanger that goes in the milking parlor in the equipment room, and so we signed a contract with them where we would private label anything that went for raw milk cooling. We would produce for them under their market name, and it was a great relationship, and it lasted for about 20 years and really helped us to make a big impression. Our brand didn't make a big impression because we were under someone else's, but we learned a lot, and we and it's there that all of the, even the dealer partnerships and the customer partnerships that our company's built on today is comes from those early days. And then on the and then on the I mentioned before on the craft beverage side, Dad and I we were about 5 years in on the dairy side when one of the leaders on the beverage side out of Oregon who built the tanks and the brew houses contacted us, and we worked with them for it was only a few years, but that really gave us a good introduction to the market. It allowed us to learn what the market required and how the modifications and adjustments that our equipment needed to support that market. Yeah, I don't know if we would have had the runway if we'd gone in independently to either of those. And because both of those markets, especially being as new as they were trust driven, and we were we didn't we didn't sell much unless somebody provided the referral or the recommendation. Most of it was through word of mouth recommendations back then.
Yeah, see, wonderful you say that. I'm personally, my upcoming book is about this. I'm a big proponent of partnerships. It is if you try to stand out with your product only, the problem is products can be copied, repeated, and it is. And I always ask people, think about a single product that stands out on its own. Just the product, where there's no competition. Probably in your space, Jim, you have competition too, and probably the competition is good competition, which is
Yep,
they have good product.
yep,
And often is what differentiates us is the quality of the partnerships that we have.
that's
Is
it.
this some yeah, and you maybe there wasn't even a question, I apologize. There was maybe more like a make a comment from my end.
Yeah.
What I've learned from you in this short 20 minutes is number one is the partnerships, because I'm always curious what's the secret of success and partnerships. What I've also listened when you went from dairy and to craft beverage market, there is this ingenuity that you build into the DNA of the company. There's a lot of passion and continuous learning. This, I don't think that sums it up, but when you look at the secret of success, partnership, ingenuity, passion, continuous learning, am I missing something?
No, I think that's a good. I mean, and the partnership extends to my teammates
Yes.
and everyone, associates and people just in my circle. Yeah, it's that's where the value comes for sure.
As the I had so many more questions about food and production, but let's pursue the partnership a little bit more. In your role as the leader of the company, what's how do you approach the whole idea of partnership with employees? Let's stay with employees. How would I see your idea of partnerships in in working with your folks, with your team? What's important for you?
Well, I think it's in the trust that me as CEO that I have to have. The partnership is with the head of my digital operations team, who I
Yes.
know is it's that partnership that I trust. He has our security and and all the all the stuff that I could choose not to give that to them there, and that's the value in it, where I just with you have certain key people on our team that are just you know are just and you got to have that just yeah
So
allow you to
basically empowerment. There's this
yes
form of empowerment and trust that you
yeah
place in people.
yeah
Because if you knew everything better than he knew, you wouldn't need him. But basically, give him the. I mean, you have the accountability as CEO, but it's his responsibility, and you don't rein in. This is what I understand.
I
He's
try
got a.
not to.
You try
Yeah,
not to.
exactly,
That's a
exactly.
very honest statement from the
Yeah.
CEO, Jim. I like this.
Yeah. And I yeah, and I that is what I strive for. And it's hard. I'm trying to shift now to, even prefacing anything I say, with, hey, this is a coaching opportunity. It might not even be a good one, but can I share this with you? And because it is hard. It's that's the getting the support and the buy-in and the um is as challenging as it's ever been, it seems like, and having that, and then that's why I need to know that these, if I'm not clear enough, you hope that people can be comfortable enough to seek clarification, or you've got, enough partners or people around that can also have your back and be supporting and making sure that stuff gets covered. We move fast. We're a very flat,
Yeah.
organization. We operate on far too many assumptions. So it's really we just couldn't do it without that constant emphasis on having the communication. But it comes from those trusted partnerships. I think you shed light on that when you I appreciate that.
I so we move fast, and I like this. We move fast. Operating on far too many assumptions means people need to make decisions on their own because you can't make all the decisions for them. What is the North Star they have, the purpose? And because here's the thing, if you have a shared idea, people make the decisions according to that shared idea.
Right.
So
Oh,
yeah,
and you're absolutely right. That is that North Star is what we're always striving for, and yeah, and what we come short of clearly defining. Yeah, and we have different North Stars in different places, but that's how we operate, I guess. I try to define, from it, and I don't know if I'll ever figure it out. As leaders, we always think we know, and everything's always easier than it actually is. I'm learning that everything is, but it's just such a that's probably the biggest part of my job is how to execute an idea and how to get the buy-in, who in your organization, you're going to need to ally with, and it's just that is a big part of what I do. I'm
so
understanding.
the and that does pretty much sound like the role definition of a CEO, Jim. So you're not alone on this one.
Okay.
I'd say, quoting you, you said sometimes you come short of clearly defining the North Star. And I'm just curious, what's the reason people get out of the bed in the morning and go to the shop? I mean, of course, there's a paycheck necessarily. They got to feed their families, but I feel like there's something beyond.
Yeah, I think we all understand that we're, probably now we're at least what we feel as if we're battling is we're trying to remain relevant, with some
Mm.
big competitors and big challenges. It's that's, and knowing that it hasn't been easy to get to where we are, and there's a lot of days it doesn't becomes obvious it's not going to be any easier, to make that next steps and to take the next steps. And that's, it was a few years ago we were really diverse, or we were multi-diversified far more than we should have been. And COVID hit, and we had like a lot of companies, we really had to adjust what our North Star and what our focus
Yes.
was. So you could say at that time our North Star became our product. That became our product and our markets, which was, and when you asked me as a CEO, I didn't want to hear about any opportunities if it didn't involve cooling milk or beer. And that was kind of a joke, but it's we had we had to kind of get back to that, and we've done a great job of doing it. That's I think that is our North Star, to make sure we maintain that position. It sounds, I talk to investors and other people, and it doesn't seem strong enough that my goal is just to maintain the leadership position that we have in a couple key markets. but that's a huge task, and that is what me and my leadership team and our leadership team at Pro, that's what we're focused on, is what is it going to take to continue, because it isn't we're not in a we don't own any comfortable spot, being
No.
where we're at. We know we have a solid solution, and we're in a very strong position, but it's not going to remain without the same efforts that it took to get here.
Yeah, energetically, and I think this is investors always want to see the future of the company and all the fields we venture in. Think energetically, of course, it is hard to say we're defending versus we're on the offense. Is that is so if you have someone in front of you, like I don't know, if you're a runner or any kind of sports person, there's someone in front of you, catching up to that person delivers a different kind of energy than being the number one and trying to stay number one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can see that. I can totally see that challenge. And what investors always want to do, they want to build aspiration into the whole idea. So, and I think it's a human thing. It's always what's the next best thing? Where and how do I reinvent myself? And then, of course, if we say we just want to keep, no, you don't. It's not just. I got to be very mindful of my words. We want to keep the spot we're in does not necessarily sound like reinvention in the first place, but it requires reinvention because
Exactly.
the world doesn't stand still.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
So basically, Jim, there's interesting. There is, and I know that's a little bit too philosophical, but there is an offense part in the defense.
Yeah. No, I like that.
Yeah, because if you don't keep innovating, which is the offense piece,
Yep.
um, um, just in case I'm curious, when you say there are big challenges, is the challenges because the technology is further advanced, or is it that your customers go somewhere else and they want to have solutions that you can't offer? What's the big challenges that you're facing? Because you said big challenges.
There are specifically, we've got regulation changes that are
Hmm.
that are hitting us in North America, or in the United States specifically, and it's the uncertainty of these regulations and mandates that are really putting a lot of pressure on us. 90% of the equipment we build uses synthetic based refrigerant, the same,
Yes.
as any of our competitors, and we have a small percentage that we're developing that's using the natural refrigerant. It's frustrating when that natural solution is by far proving to be the best solution, but not having the support, and the industry support is still pushing and supporting the other path. So we're kind of stuck in the middle. I see us in 5 years having, yeah, I don't really know how I see us. I'm trying to, I got to be careful what I say here. I guess that's a good summation for, me as head of my company. I don't even have a clear, I'm struggling to even envisioning what, from a product mix, I could see going down my production lines in the next 5 years. But more than likely, it should be two natural refrigerant options that are proven worldwide, to be as effective as anything else. But it's hard to say right now, because we're still going to have to produce product that will compete, you know, with each of my customers in some of the, most blue collar bread and butter industries in the country. So it's a balance between the two technologies is right now one of my biggest challenges.
And I hope I'm not completely wrong, but I remember you telling me the story of when your team brought up the idea of CO2 systems. Is that what
Yeah.
we're talking about?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
Yeah. What happened there? I remember that you said initially you had some reservations, but
Yeah.
they convinced you.
We even had a meeting facilitator brought in to help us get this brainstorming session going, and who did the proverbial no dumb question statement. And then somebody said, had you ever, and he was our new VP of sales, he said, did you ever consider building a CO2 chiller system? And I said, I know we just said there's no dumb questions, but that is one that I'm gonna guarantee is not one we can take. It was too big of a stretch from our synthetic based equipment. And then it was 2 weeks later when one of my best customers called, and he said, hey, have you guys ever thought about building a CO2 based chiller. And I said, "Hey, I was just having this discussion." I said, "What's your opinion?" He said, "I think it'd be a real strong move. I think it'd be probably the best decision you could make." And he introduced me to some engineers who he thought could help me take that first step. So I thought that was more than a sign. So and it's fun. And I still talk to that guy today. He works with us. So it's fun to see how it's evolved.
So that means we're going back to partnerships. In some ways, your customers have become the co-architects of of your evolution, basically.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. That first system we built, it was funded by a dairy farmer who understood the concept of CO2. And that's what we did. We said, "Hey, we're just taking this proven concept that's the number one solution used in supermarkets today in the US. It's a that's where the focus has been, but we're taking that proven concept and putting it on a dairy farm. And we created a serviceable, manageable, and efficient package that and over the last 4 or 5 years, with the help of the dairy farmers, who some of them are even to this day providing us feedback and working with us on development ideas, as we continue to grow the product. But it's been hundreds of hours in the field and with direct feedback from our customers. We have a system at a distillery brewery up in Talkeetna, Alaska, and that was, I think, the second or third system we built. And he was just a good friend who we've worked with for decades, since they started their business up there. And he was also tired of paying a ridiculous amount for diesel to, provide. He saw the efficiency aspect of it. So we put one of our first systems up there. And did we hit all the marks? No, but we learned a tremendous amount. We continue to spend time up there and work with them, and we're still dialing it in. And but it's the system that we shipped up to Alaska, like all of the ones at the about a dozen facilities that we've built out over the last 5 years, our systems have not only become the primary cooling source in each of the facilities, but they've also become the primary hot water heating source, and to everyone. And that was a surprise and something we weren't expecting to see.
See, the dumb question would have been from my side was, why do they need cooling in Alaska?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
that's
houses in the South don't have heat.
yeah.
So why need no, I'm sorry. That was the don't answer this, Jim. Don't answer this. That was
Oh, I
my
just said,
my my playful Monday morning, Dirk. So this how do you how do you so those this means those partnerships, they it's almost in a good way symbiotic, because you're helping them, they help you. What's your general approach of further developing them? Is like, do you stay in contact regularly? Do you visit them? Do you connect some of those customers for experience? So
absolutely,
how does this work? Because it seems like this is the foundation of your business model, apart from the
absolutely.
ingenuity and the innovation.
No, you're absolutely right. That's what I love doing, is um, bringing people from one of our markets. We've got dairy equipment dealers who, when we first met, they had never done anything inside a craft brewery. Now they have, dedicated crews that are just focused on not only supporting the dairy aspect of their business, but they've generated a whole new revenue stream where they're cross referencing, and they thank us for, introducing them to this new market where really it's benefited. We've provided our customers in the craft beverage side, one of the most reliable service partners, that they could get, to who really understands it. So that is in it. This past weekend we were in Sonoma at the Wine Industry Expo, and
Yes.
being able to, I mean, almost to this. There's one winemaker, and he comes from the gas and oil industry, as a lot of, I mean, maybe as a lot of wealthy people do, who
Yeah.
often become
Yeah.
winemakers.
Wine is fun. Wine is a good hobby.
But he and he is someone who I met probably 12 years ago, and he called, and I realized, and somehow, you get on a conversation, and he was an oil guy, but he's putting this winery in, and he didn't know the jargon, but he knew what he needed. And what we ended up building him was, he helped me build a better cooling system, and he also
Huh.
paid for it. I remember we had a bunch of change orders that were almost as high as the unit, but he just wanted a bunch of features that were standard in his industry, but maybe not standard in ours. some he realized later he didn't really need, but we tried them, we put them in, and I was in Sonoma this past week and hadn't set it up, but just being in touch with him, he's like, "Hey, come up to the house for our
Yes.
holiday party." So we celebrated, with him and his 175 of his closest friends, for the holidays. It's the relationships like that that are, they that's what it's about, and it's the good part of my job for sure.
Yeah, and when you say 175 of his closest friends, I don't have 175
I
friends.
don't either.
Um, but I'd say this is what these successful people have built as networks.
Yeah.
So these so
You're absolutely right. I'm at the party talking to the stonemason that built his hearth, and that's the people that he had. Those were his friends, and me, his chiller guy. So yeah, those are my kind of people. So it was a great evening as
yeah,
I
and
expected.
yeah, that is wonderful. And in a way, developing the solution with you, he basically gave back. He offered his knowledge and made you better, which is the nature of a partnership. It's the give and take that you have in a partnership. That is I love I have a I have a product question for you, and maybe you're laughing at me, and it's okay if you can laugh at me. So one of our customers, they are in the compressor business, and they do sell compressors, but they also sell air as a service. So they continue to own the compressors, but the customer pays for air. And that's
No,
it's an innocent question. So basically, are you selling hardware or are you also selling cooling?
that's that concept is definitely in discussions now, and it's coming. But now we are just selling hardware at this point. But yeah, I can see it happening most definitely, especially with these all-in-one systems that we're developing now that are becoming primary heaters and or water heating systems and cooling units because it's just kW and it's easy to monitor. The new interfaces on our newest system, you can track your 24-hour kW usage, live. So I'm excited.
Yeah, because especially in the world we're in, they want to focus on crafting their beers or chilling their milk. And I just need it chilled. I don't want to become an expert in cooling.
Yep. Oh, you're absolutely right, and the service aspect of it is challenging. Doing and why we're having to integrate all the remote monitoring, the remote, troubleshooting, and all that stuff into our systems. But that also lends to selling cooling as a service and being able to provide that, and the modularity too, and the uncertainty with the mandates and with the Environmental Protection Agency rules and regulations. It all lends to kind of shifting that risk to a service provider versus making the investment.
Yeah, and basically, if you have this as scale in your organization, you know much better how to handle the regulation than a brewery or a dairy farm can. If they come and audit your unit on site, they don't have an expert in cooling on site, I guess, because that would be you.
Right, right. They would be
Yeah.
contacting us. Yeah.
Um, so this is so the that innovation piece. It seems that innovation piece, with regulation, but everything that's going on, innovation often comes from the outliers. The outliers, as in an oil executive coming into wine and developing a system with you.
Hmm.
How do you recognize when those edge cases point to where the whole market is heading? So how does sometimes
Yeah.
it could have been just a solution for your oil/wine guy, but it seems like you learned something bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess and trust in your intuition and gut and 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 all the mistakes that you've made in the past that you can learn from also. But I've gotten pretty good at yeah, knowing what ideas to get behind and which ones are gonna have traction. We're a small company. We're and we got to really be careful because I could develop us, right off a cliff if
Yes.
they're that big. So we move when we decided to test the theory of Steve when he mentioned, can you build a CO2 chiller? We've said, okay, we're gonna the only way we can do it is we're gonna do one model. And this is
Yes.
we're going to just focus on that, and that's what we've done. We've replicated it. We'll put multiples of those on a single platform to scale up and down, but really all our team is focused on is this one system and model. And it's been hard because I've had, people that have said, "Well, I really want this and I'll order it, but I want you to add, another third to it, or just something that and we held the line, and I'm glad we did, because we might not have gotten the number of systems, but with the systems we got, we really were able to learn a lot. And then it came time to expand, and this is where I'm getting with this. And that's when it was a conversation from a customer of mine. Not only he has a brewery, but he's also a winemaker, one of the best wineries in the world. But he contacted me, and he's been a fan of CO2 since it started. He's been out at the dairy farms. He's been at the World Agriculture Expo, where we've had some of them on display, and he's just on it. It's also our one model that we have is twice as big as he'll ever need at either of his facilities. It's just too large of a
Yeah.
system. So it was because of him, and with all of his work and support, that we finally decided, okay, we are going to come up with a smaller one. The first one, initially I said, okay, Nick, you've put your time in. The first unit we're going to build for you. It'll be your unit. We'll launch it. We'll have it. We'll show it at this wine industry expo that we were just at. You can see we didn't make that deadline. But what happened, as a lot of times, that was our best of intentions about 8 months ago, is we were going to put that first unit there. But we also realized that a unit for this person who's very specialized, he makes the best wine in the world, he's making the best beer in the world, it's not going to be a unit I'm going to build for production. So I quickly realized we're going to build two systems. I'm going to build a production model of this new Pro Green 50 horsepower at half the scale. Right alongside of it, we're going to build this one for Nick. Nick's is going to have a stainless steel frame. It's going to have, a lot of extra bells and whistles that, maybe 3 or 4% of my customers might subscribe to or feel is really important. And then we'll have our dairy version come along right beside it. So I guess I know I couldn't pass up the opportunity to build a
No,
system with
no,
this,
you can't.
who is a celebrity, and he's going to be a spokesperson for when we take these next steps and get it put into his facility. But I also couldn't sacrifice our project and slow it down, so that's why we created the other path with the production unit. And I think that was a good compromise, on risk, and our potential reward is as high as it was when we initially set out.
And and I can imagine if you work for a dairy farm with 10,000 cows, your system basically has to be functional.
Oh
But
yeah.
if you work with a high profile guy like Nick, he wants to have it functional but also neat.
Hmm.
So the stainless steel and all that's a different market. This is sort of like the premium market. They don't
Absolutely.
just they don't just want functional in the bag. They want something where they can take 30 of their 175 friends around the building and show them their cooling system.
Yes. Yep. Yep. And have their guy hose it down with a high pressure steam hose and not
Yeah,
worry about
and
it.
look how shiny it is. That's my cooling system, and I was part of designing it.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
and you're making them partners. We're back to partnership, and that it also instills some pride of them. These are impact-driven people. They wanna see the fruits of their labor. Yeah. Oh, that is so there's another so there is the functional market environment, and then there's the premium market environment. I think wine is a lot of the premium space.
Hmm. Absolutely. But they're also practical.
Yeah, yeah, I was just
They'll
I
spend
just
more
felt
on the stonemason work than they will on the cooling system, because
I
more people will comment on that.
I just thought, Jim, you and I just found a new business model for your business. That's that is let's go back to the culture, because I think the culture on the outside with the Knicks, the Steves, you mentioned the names, so it's
Mhm.
very personal driven. These are important people for you.
Yeah,
So this
absolutely.
means you need a culture on the inside that fosters that innovation. So what I understand is a lot of your role, and maybe that's also because you've done it for so long. You're not just the CEO; you're the gatekeeper. You gotta make sure that the ship stays afloat and goes in the same direction. So how do you foster that culture of innovation on the inside? Because apparently you need a lot of it.
Yeah. I think for us, it's trusting the team, and also, with we always call it, grabbing that next ring, and you want to encourage them to grab it, but you can't. You gotta keep moving too, and you gotta know where you're gonna go once you do get there. But we'll make yeah, we provide a lot of opportunities and hope people will kind of take it and run with it. And then
Yes.
having the oversight to know when they're not, able to, I guess that's the most important thing. And eliminating the I over challenge, and I always want, and then why didn't you do it this way? And I'm trying to, correct that behavior and instead be more invest more in defining the requests and doing that. And we go through a lot of efforts to get the feedback from the customers. We go through a lot of effort to an emphasis when we provide a solution to a customer to really go into detail, what the load is or what work our system's being asked to do, just to make sure, that we have the right solution. And I think that with that emphasis, it's really helped our team, you know, understand, wow, I need to, what they need to know from our customers to help them and advance them. And that, I think that drives it a lot. Our team, as you said, they love to be part of it. They love, I've got all people on the team that say, that was my idea. I was the one that came up with that, now it's a standard thing. And I mean, that's it's great. We have customers who, I was out on a job site and trade shows, we go to the big trade shows. And I love it. I love getting that interaction, the direct interaction with the customers and with the technicians. And it's without fail, there's always someone who'll come up and say, and sometimes it'll be on the equipment that'll be right there on display. They'll say, you know, how do you expect a technician to be able to replace or check, this item? And you'll look
Yes.
at it and say,
That's a very
"Well,
specific question.
yeah, and there's been times I've said, that's a great question. And you know what? And you're absolutely right. And so often from that, we get some of the most amazing design updates. And not only do we solve the problem that this customer brought, or the one aspect of the issue that this customer brought, but a lot of times we eliminate production, we streamline the process of assembly and testing it on our own side also. There's been, I think, being open to it, requesting the information from our customers has been good. Sometimes you want your team to provide ideas, but there's also been times when I've asked the team, let's just try it my way. Let's push through this and then we'll circle back, and get those. And that can be hard, but sometimes to keep the momentum, you gotta just push the concept through also.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the CEO role too. We always like, it's first of all, as a CEO, you cannot do anything yourself because you always work through others, correct? You could technically build the device, but you have people to do that for. You could do the digital, but you have people for it. So basically, everything you can do is convince and talk. And sometimes convincing and talking is not enough, and then you have to tell. That happened, and it would be strange to say a CEO never tells. A CEO, yeah, that would be kind of a weird concept. No, no, I'm totally with you with this one. When you and I went into your shop and I asked anyone, what are you of your employees? Doesn't matter
Mhm.
who it is. What are you most proud of? What would people say?
I think the equipment we're building, I
Hmm.
think that it is impressive, and I hope that's the answer. And also the business we've all built, and that we work in, it is a good place to work, I hope.
Hmm. Yeah,
And we've that's another thing. I think I'm good at building teams, and
yeah.
I'm so proud of it. We've got great ones. Our operations team has never been as at the level or as strong as it's been, and then also from our finance team to tech support, all of it is just we're real fortunate.
Yeah, it's always the people that make the difference. When we look at the entirety of how long you've been in the business, you're playing the long game. Would you agree that?
Yeah.
So on the horizon, I know you don't have the 5-year horizon yet. What's What's the long game, Jim, for Pro Refrigeration? I'm pretty sure you have a couple of things.
Yeah, it'll involve partners. We got,
Partners.
and there's a lot of opportunities in that that we're faced. I think that for now, I've got or Pro has we've got a lot of runway in front of us to continue to support our customers, especially on the dairy and the craft beverage side. The craft beverage side is going through a real tough time right now in North America, and it's nice to start to see indicators where we're coming out of that. So we're excited about that. And dairy, I think, is going to continue to down the path it is. We're on the farm level. We're rarely are we extended into the processing
Yes.
facilities unless they're specialty processors. But the processing plants are on their every one of them, it seems, is expanding and growing and adding processing facilities. So the we don't see any there's nothing but opportunity for us in our immediate future, and that's where our focus is.
Here we go. There's the 5 year. There's the
Yeah,
5 year plan.
that's a big one.
Yeah, that and by the way, that does not sound like defense at all. That actually sounds like offense.
Awesome, awesome.
Yeah, no, I do. um, the out of it, I mean, the whole thing on my end is driven from curiosity, Jim. If you had a magic wand, and it's a bit of a tricky question. Of course, we all want world peace and no world hunger. These are the things, but a magic wand. From what I hear from you, you are positioned pretty well. You have good product, you have an amazing team, you have amazing partnerships, but you have steep competition, regulation, the markets moving fast. What would you do with the magic wand, if for your business?
Well, my biggest need now is engineering.
Mm,
It would, and not, and it a lot of it is just that crossing the i's and crossing the t's and dotting the i's that we need, and that I could really that's slowing us down, I think, from some of the scaling and growing. So it would be maybe an unlimited engineering resource. And when I say engineering, it's a huge and broad term within Pro, like most organizations, is we have production engineering, we've got, development, we've got on-site project engineering that we're involved with, and applications engineering for, and it's a challenge for especially a company of our size, where our engineering team is less than 10 people. There's no way we can operate without multiple hats being shared.
yeah. So engineering in a way of so unlimited engineering resource
Yeah.
in terms of whatever idea is there, we can build it or design it, or what does the unlimited engineering resource do?
Yeah, I think in updates and developments, and I think in the development time, getting the new products. One of my biggest drivers for only offering that single CO2 unit was just the huge lift it was to develop that one model.
Yes. Yeah.
To be able to not say no to those applications, or those opportunities, and we say no to way more than we ever even consider too. That just because we realized right out of the gate that it would require more engineering
I
assistance
got
and more
you.
verification. So I think it's in that more in the product development, especially when it comes to these natural refrigerants. Our team is doing fantastic too. Like, for example, the new natural Pro Green 50. That's our half size, or the system that's about half the capacity of our current one. We're developing that on the same chassis as our most popular synthetic base model. So we're gonna, there's so many aspects of this new one that's really gonna um, um, have the scale, and the development of it will be a much less of a lift than it was on the Pro Green 100. Plus, it's gonna really help us drive the costs and the production costs, and from start to finish is going to be right in line, or even less than our current product offering. So we're excited about that.
So every time when we point to something like, I need to know much more, I need to accelerate, be faster, at the moment everybody points to AI.
Yes, yes.
And by the way, one of my first guests was Jason Walcott from Twin City Foods. They are producing frozen peas, frozen carrots, and all of this.
Okay.
And even Jason was talking about AI. So it's the frozen pea guy talking about AI. It feels like, yeah, it's everywhere. It feels like that unlimited engineering resource is something that it seems like like the perfect use case
It
for
is. You're
some large
absolutely right.
AI usage.
It is for running the simulations, running the
Yes.
twin. Yes, no, it is, and it's yeah, that's exactly the resources that, yeah, my magic wand would be focused on.
Yeah, because this would be the AI could be the engineer that has access to basically all the knowledge that we have at the immediately, basically, instantly, which is insane if you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's what we just had, it's like the ocean of information, and you have to understand how to get that piece of information that you want. Yeah,
That's a great
that's
way. Yeah, no, I hear it. We are so excited about AI, and we technology has been for us. I think growing up in the Pacific Northwest with Amazon and Microsoft
yes.
and everything right here has been part of it. It's I'm yeah, we're so excited. AI, you're absolutely right. Is it's and it's indescribable. And I know we talked about it at our first meeting too.
Yes.
Just
Yes.
how neat it is, but it's super exciting, the impact, and I don't know if we talked about this, but for us, it's just we don't even consider AI, you know, first, we're just looking at processes that we have that AI can have a positive effect on, and then we have to after we get this huge project list of options, then it's finding out which ones it could be the most effective on, and it's pretty amazing, that's for sure.
It is pretty amazing. It is probably the most powerful tool you and I were given in a lifetime, at least.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we have to learn how to use it right. I think you can get lost as much as you can get lost on Instagram or TikTok.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And trying to put the barriers on it and enterprise wide, we're working on a few different aspects. I think we've had pretty good success and but yeah, you're right. It's and there's no playbook now. You got
No, 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 and I think this is where the innovation happens
yep,
at the moment. So who uses those tools most effectively to speed up the processes that add the most value?
yep, yep, exactly.
Um, and we'll take this up in a second conversation in a year or so, Jim, because
Perfect.
I gotta because you see, I'm giving you homework. I need to know your North Star. I need to know your 5-day plan, 5-year plan next time we talk. I'm sorry, it's kind of is that see, I'm corporate trained. It's always the things you're looking for. So what are you gonna be in 5 years? What's the North Star? No, I think you have that. I'm pretty sure I heard it loud and clear. There are some detractors in terms of regulation, product mix, but there's a lot of opportunity. What I learned.
Yes. Yep.
We're
That's
also
it.
talking. Yeah.
No.
Hey, let me try to wrap this up. We always try to do this a little bit formally. We have a formal entrance and a formal exit. Jim VanderGiessen built a life in a company around one of the quiet engines of modern life. It's something you don't think a lot about it, but it's everywhere. And along the way, he learned how to lead through change, how to stay open when new ideas challenge old beliefs, and how to grow a business without losing the spirit that started it. Jim's story shows what it means to take responsibility for a legacy and carry it forward with care. It's a hard thing to do. It shows how humility and curiosity can reshape an entire company and reminds us that some of the most influential leaders, like Jim, are the ones working behind the scenes and building the systems that make our daily life possible. Jim, thank you so much for coming on the show. And I have to say, it was an absolute pleasure.
I enjoyed it. Thank you very much. This has been fun.